So we're about one day away from no more traffic. Well, not no more, a lot less traffic on your commuting hour because school is almost out, right? Yeah, woo. My daughter Gwendolyn graduated from 5th grade, or I guess promoted is what they called it. And there's a picture of here up on the screen of her. Oh, there we go. One more. Come on. There we go. So there's my beautiful wife, and there's Gwendolyn. And, you know, as the principal was talking, he's talking about, you know, they started in kindergarten. And when we moved here, she started in kindergarten at the same school. And, like, all these memories just started flooding back and how she's grown so much. And you guys probably felt that bittersweet feeling, right? And then I started thinking about what's going to happen in this summer. You guys were so close to summer, and when the kids are there, we go to the beach. Anybody go to the beach during the summer? Yeah, it's a lot of fun, right? And so I also started thinking back to when we used to go to the beach when they were kids, because it's kind of different now. They used to love going to the beach, and we would have a lot of fun. We would play, and of course, here's a picture of all of us. There's my wife, and look at Woody, how small he is. There's Gwenny. Look at how small she was there, and there's Charlotte, of course. And we would go all the time, and of course, Dad has to do everything with the kids. That's the way it is. My wife would just sit there from the shore watching us, but if we were going to go into the surf, Dad was going to be holding their hand, right, because of the crashing waves. And if we were going to play in the sand or run along the beach, then Dad had to go with them. And so we were doing everything together when we were at the beach. And one of the things that they love to do is they'd like me to bury them in sand. I think I got it. There's Gwendolyn being a mermaid right there and Charlotte above her. They enjoyed that. And we used to play sandcastles, too. That's one thing that they always loved. And one of the first times I was building the sandcastle, I have this big, elaborate thing in mind. I start building it. Daddy, keep going, keep going. I start building it. And then all of a sudden, they realized how much fun it was to kick the sandcastle over. Yeah. So, like, I'm starting to build it, and I'm like, you guys, I guess you don't want the sandcastle. No, build the sandcastle. So I start building it again, and they would kick it over. And it got to the point I could barely get one up, and they would kick it over. And I thought to myself, we're never going to get anywhere if we don't start working together on this, right? And nowadays, they make their sandcastles, and I can't touch them because, you know, it's a work of perfection. But for them, it was just an opportunity to kick it over. You know, working in unison is so important in every task, right? We realize that. Every project, every adventure, every job, every endeavor that you get involved in, if you're working in unity with someone else, if you're working as a team, then you're more than likely to get it done. In fact, sometimes it's essential. And sometimes, and every time, it's the same thing when it comes to our marriage. You may say, Pastor John, that is so obvious that you have to work together, right, for your marriage to work out. And yet, we all know people a couple married together living under one roof as two separate people. Do you know what I'm saying? Right? You're like, they're married, they're in the same residence, they got the same address, but are they really actually living that married life? We wonder that, right? Or maybe this, and it probably happened to you at one point in your life, happened to me, I just want to confess, right? We're married, we're supposed to be friends, right? We're supposed to be together, and that sometimes they can become the enemy. You ever have that happen? You start thinking about them as the enemy, and you're like, okay, so maybe you're right, maybe there's a little bit of disunity at times between our marriages, because marriages, you have to work at them if you want unity, because there's so many things that can compete. We've got clashing personalities. Maybe you have different upbringings, right? You did it this way, they did it the other way. Or they have an annoying trait that you just like have to live with, and you're like, oh man, that thing is driving me crazy. Or they have different perspectives. Or what about this? You've got kids. That makes it even harder. Or you have in-laws, or for some of you, outlaws, right? You're just like, this is not helpful. Right? Not to mention that we're both two flawed individuals trying to make this marriage work. And so how do we work together? How do we find unity? I don't know if you know this, but God has given us something special to maintain the unity in our lives. It's a gift, and it's so important for our marriage, and it's called sex. Yes, sex. That's what we're going to talk about today, because it's such an important part of a marriage, and we're in this series called Love Story. And it's called Love Story because that's literally what it is. It exists in the Old Testament. It's called the Song of Solomon, or sometimes the Song of Songs, depending which version of the Bible that you have. And basically, it is a literary work, a poem about a romance between a man and a wife, and it was written by King Solomon. And as we read it, we might find it hard to believe that it comes from the Bible. Why? Because it's so graphic when it comes to physical intimacy. I mean, the innuendos, the euphemisms, the things, the metaphors that are there are so graphic, and you're like, does it mean that? And you're like, yeah, it means exactly that, because it does. And so it's like, I don't believe that God actually put this in the Word of God. And well, I think he did because it's important. Some theologians believe that this actually isn't referring to a man and a woman, because they're like, there's no way God would talk about a topic like that in the middle of his Bible. It's not even possible, right? So they believe that it's the relationship that God has with the people Israel, or that Jesus has with the church. But again, I don't know how you're going to reconcile a couple of those euphemisms when it comes to God's relationship with you and me, right? But I believe that God made it that way because it's important to him, and it should be important to us. And so if you could understand, I believe, this area of life a little bit better, he puts it in there so that you and I could do better in this area of our life. If we could understand it better, then our marriages would be better, because it was designed for our marriages. And not only that, but we'll be able to pass that on to the next generation. You know, it's sometimes difficult as we watch our culture passing on the things that we've learned about marriage, or not passing them on, and then we're not setting up our kids to succeed. But I believe that God has this in the Word of God. So not only that our marriages would succeed, but the future marriages would succeed of those people who are close to us. And so last week we talked about dating. This week we're going to see the wedding in the Song of Solomon, and the wedding night, if you know what I'm saying, okay? So it starts here. The Shulamite represents the woman. She's the woman. She says, who is this coming out of the wilderness like pillars of smoke, perfumed with myrrh and frankincense? I mean, this is this grand image. If you saw a column of smoke, and everybody's attention would be like, what is going on over there? Is something burning? What's going on? So she sees this, and it's perfumed with myrrh and frankincense, with all the merchants' fragrant powder. So not only is it a visual sight, but there's this fragrant sight also. He says, behold, it's Solomon's couch, with 60 valiant men around it, of the valiant of Israel. They all hold swords, being experts in war. Every man has his sword on his thigh because of the fear of the night. So this entourage comes out in the night to come and get her. Of the wood of Lebanon, Solomon the king made himself a palanquin. And I'll tell you what that is. And he made its pillars of silver, its supports of gold, its seat of purple, its interior paved with love by the daughters of Jerusalem. Go forth, O daughters of Jerusalem, and see King Solomon with the crown with which his mother crowned him on the day of his wedding. You could circle that. This is the wedding that we're looking at, the day of the gladness of his heart. So the Shulamite woman, she's describing this entourage that is coming to get her. And basically a palanquin, I didn't even know this, so if you didn't know it, don't be embarrassed. I had to look it up. It is a covered box what you would sit in with poles that someone would carry. This is a picture of what I'm talking about. You've seen this before, right? We all have seen that. So basically, Solomon sent the limo to come get her, right? And this entourage of 60 men that are armed for war in their military uniforms. Have you ever seen a wedding? The guy's in that military white dress uniform, right? He looks amazing. And so these guys show up to come and get her. The wedding day has come. This is the wedding procession that we're visualizing right here. And they are making a commitment to each other. Now, the first thing I want you to know, and if you pull out your outlines that were handed to you when you walked in the door, this will help this message stick. And this may seem a little redundant to last week, but physical intimacy was meant to be shared in a marriage commitment. Physical intimacy was meant to be shared in a marriage commitment. Last week, we spoke about this idea regarding dating. Okay, if you didn't listen to it or you missed it, I want you to go to our YouTube channel or just go to our website. You'll see a link there and listen to that message. Because what's happening there is a spiritual and emotional and physical connection that is being made. We talked about what that means, but we're going to talk about it a little bit more today, this time, though, in the context of a relationship, a marriage relationship. And there is one question that men and women ask every single day. And I've said this before, and maybe you haven't heard it, so this is why it's important. Because if we could understand these two questions, it would help us in our relationships with each other, with men and women. You see, the man's question and the women's questions are different. And they don't literally ask it. But we wake up every day because instinctively we just want to know the answer to this question. It's inherent in your nature. And every day we seek to know the answer to this burning question, and then the quest begins every single morning until the evening, and it starts again. Men ask this question. If you want to write it down, it says, the question is this: do I have what it takes? Every single one of us is asking this question, every man. And I've noticed this even from my son when he was little. My son wants to climb the fence. He wants to climb the tree. Every time I see a tree, it's like I already try to keep his eyes from looking at it. He says, Dad, can I climb that tree? I want to go to the top. Dad, can I pick up that rock? It's that big. Dad, can I play with this thing? Can I jump on that ATV? Can I operate this? He's constantly asking these things because in his heart, as a man, a young man who's growing to be a man, he's like, can I do this? Can I do this? The man asks this question every day. Whether we know it or not, it's an automatic question. Do I have what it takes to win the woman? Do I have what it takes to keep the woman? Do I have what it takes to get the job? Do I have what it takes to keep the job, right? Every day we're looking and seeking the answer to that question. And it's not something that we think about. It just happens automatically. The man wants to know what he's capable of. But the woman asks a different question. If you want to write this down, her question is, am I desirable? Every woman is asking this question. And I see it in my daughters. When my daughters were little, they put on a little dress. My son will dress up in a uniform. He never goes, hey, Dad, how do I look? Never asked me that question. You know, and I'm like, but my daughter, she gets in a dress. She starts twirling that dress right in front of me. Daddy, how do I look? Am I beautiful? Am I beautiful? She wants the man to say, yes, you are beautiful. Yes, you are desirable. You know, you ever arrive at a party or someplace? I don't see this when the man comes to the door, another man's there, and he doesn't sit there going like, man, you look amazing today. Man, that hair and everything. Now, they'll compliment each other. You know, someone said, hey, nice shirt today, right? And you're like, okay, that'll happen. But when a woman walks through the door, oh, you look so beautiful. Oh, I love the way you did with this and that you did. And those earrings, they just match. And your hair, the way it's done, and your makeup. And they're like, you know what they're doing? They're trying unconsciously, they don't even really subconsciously, to answer the question for the other woman. You're desirable. It's the truth. And every woman's doing the same thing. The men don't do that because we don't even understand it. It just went right over our heads. But the women do because they are asking this question even though they don't know it. They're not thinking about it. They're asking this question in their heart. Am I desirable? You know, my wife, man, this causes the woman to want to be pursued by the man. I've told this story before, but the first time I ever went on a date with my wife, she goes, John, here's what I want you to do. It's okay. What do you want me to do? She goes, first off, I want you to take me to a nice place. Not like McDonald's, not Chili's, right? I want you to go make a reservation and go to a nice place. Second, I want you to dress up really nicely. No T-shirts, no jeans. I want you to look good and brush your teeth, wash your hair. No. And then I want you to come to my house, knock on the door. Don't just come in. When we go on dates at home, by the way, many times she'll want me to wait outside after I get dressed to the bedroom door and then come to the bedroom door and knock on it so she can come out. So she's getting herself prepared. So she says, when you come to my door and I come and open it, I'm going to be dressed in a beautiful dress. I'm going to have my makeup done. I'm going to look good. And I want you to tell me I look beautiful. This is what she told me. And I'm like, great. Nice and easy, right? But what does she say? Every woman here understands what was going on there. I want you to tell me I'm desirable. I want you to tell me that you want me. That's what they're saying because that question, like I said, is there. It's subconsciously there all the time. Now notice the scene here as we opened up, right? The bride is painting for us. She's like 60 armed men come to get her, right? There is protection. There is safety. There's provision, right? These are so important for a relationship to be nurtured. She's like, man, he must really care for me. I mean, he sent the limousine and all these guys to watch over me and protect me. This is how much he cares about me. The Bible says this in 1 Peter. He says, in the same way, you husbands must give honor to your wives. Treat your wife with understanding as you live together. She may be the weaker than you are, but she is your equal partner in God's gift of new life. Treat her as you should so your prayers will not be hindered. Peter's saying you have to understand a little bit about her so you can treat her the right way. And because this is what's important, you need to be answering this question for your wife every single day. You're like, every day? I'm like, yes, every single day this question needs to be answered. You see, both of these questions, when it comes to a man and when it comes to a woman, inform us about how we view sex in our relationship. You see, the commitment of marriage provides the needed soil for deep and lasting intimacy to grow. Do you realize that the woman needs to feel secure in the man if she's going to fully give herself to that man? Like there's no holding back. There's no reservation. You've given it all. We stood at the altar and you gave everything to me. You gave your life to me. And this opens her up to give herself back to you. You see, the greatest sex organ that a woman has is her brain. I don't know if you know this, guys, right? It is. It's what's going on inside of her head. When she's at ease, it will open up the door for intimacy that cannot come any single other way. You see, that's why this sentence, exclusivity, paves the way for intimacy in your life. And that's why marriage provides that exclusivity for those people, two people, a man and a woman, to give themselves fully to each other. And the same questions that these same questions that are burning inside of us that we need an answer to, like I said, inform our ideas about sex. Check out what happens next here. So the beloved, he is the Solomon. He says, "Behold, you are fair." And he doesn't mean like fair as an average, okay? That was the term fair, meant you are beautiful, you are amazing, not like, okay, you're just okay. So you are fair, my love. Behold, you are fair. So he repeats it. You have dove's eyes behind your veil. So there she is with her wedding veil, right? This is, by the way, this is after the vows, because we're going to see she's already married to him. Your hair is like the flock of goats coming down from Mount Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of shorn sheep, which have come up from the washing, every one which bears twins, and none is barren among them. So she has all of her teeth. They're white and beautiful. Your lips are like a strand of scarlet, and your mouth is lovely. Your temples behind your veil are like the piece of pomegranate, or the temple or the cheek. So it's like the pomegranate's red, like she's flushed. Your neck is like the Tower of David, built for an armory, on which hang 1,000 bucklers, all shields of mighty men. And yet, it's not like she had a long neck, okay? I just want you to know. But that was a symbol of honor and nobility. And he's like, your neck, you are like beautiful, stately. He's like, this is, noble. And so your two breasts. So what's he doing? He's starting up here with her eyes. He's slowly moving his way down, right? Your two breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle, which feed among the lilies. Okay, this is the Bible, people. I didn't come up with this. Until the day breaks. Now listen to this. Until the day breaks and the shadows flee. What does that mean? All night long. They're together, right? I will go my way to the mountain of myrrh and to the hill of frankincense. Those are what you think it means. Okay, you are all fair, my love, and there is no spot in you. Come with me from Lebanon, my spouse, with me from Lebanon. Look from the top of Amana, from the top of Senir and Hermon, and from the lions' dens, and from the mountains of the leopards. You have ravished my heart, my sister, my spouse. He's married to her. You have ravished my heart with one look of your eyes, with one link of your necklace. How fair is your love, my sister, my spouse. How much better than wine is your love, and the scent of your perfumes than all spices. Your lips, O my spouse, drip as the honeycomb. Honey and milk are under your tongue, and the fragrance of your garments is like the fragrance of Lebanon. And so he's speaking to this woman. The marriage ceremony has been completed. And 5 times the beloved in this section, in this one chapter, is going to call her his spouse. So they have been married. And you would think that the time for foreplay and for talk is over. It's now time for action, right? That's what you would think. But after all, like he's won her. He's got her. And then he spends time speaking about her and praising her and talking about her beauty. He's complimenting her. And if you see the progression here, he starts with the veil. He pulls the veil off so he sees her eyes. Now, he's seen her eyes before, but it's like he sees them for the first time again. And he's making his way down as he's complimenting how beautiful she is because she is fair to him. And he's not comparing her hair to goat's hair, okay, just so you know. I don't know if that would be the best thing, and if you're a man here, don't go home and say, your hair is like goat's hair, baby. Instead, he's like saying the goats that came down from the Mount of Gilead were black sheep. And imagine if they're running down, right? They're coming down. The tresses of her hair are coming down. What's he doing? He's undoing her hair, and her hair is falling. And he's like, oh, it's falling. Like the black hair is falling down, right? And so he slowly takes off the veil. He's taking now off her hair and letting it down. And slowly, this is the honeymoon night. The clothes are coming off is what's happening. And he's praising her beauty. And so what he does is he touches her with words before he touches her with his hands. And this is the second thing that's important for us to understand. For women, and this is very important, if you can understand this concept, it will help you a lot. Listen, Men, understand this concept about your wife, and women, please understand this about your husband. It will help you. For women, sex is the culmination of feeling loved. For men, sex is the confirmation of feeling loved. This is important, okay? The man seems to be ready. If we were to talk about this for a little bit, my wife says this to me, you're ready to go all the time. Like, but maybe I said that wrong. What she means is, men don't need a lot of, foreplay to be ready, okay? That's what she means by this, okay? That did not come out right, okay. She's like, hey, you're just ready. We don't need to, get you warmed up. But for a woman, there's a whole warm-up routine that goes going on in her head. Like when I go jogging, now that I'm older, I got to stretch for 20 minutes, and it's like the woman, she's doing these mental exercises in her head long before you get to that moment. And that's because sex means something different for both men and women. For women, sex is the culmination of feeling loved. What does that mean? That when the woman feels loved already, that's when she opens up to the man, okay? So making love, you may have heard this, for a woman starts long before you go to bed, right? Long before you've been together, it's already started. For her, sex is like the cherry on top of the sundae ice cream. That's what it's like for them. They're like, okay, yes, I've already felt loved. Now we're consummating this, and now it feels awesome. It's just kind of the cherry on top. Maybe you've heard it said this before. Sex for a woman starts in the morning. And it's true. There are times when Carol and I, we get to that moment, and she's like, we haven't talked about this all day long. You expect this to just happen? I'm like, well, kind of. I thought so, right? She goes, why don't you just start talking about this morning or this afternoon? I'm like, I didn't know you needed that big of an on-ramp, You can't just jump in and expect things to get to the point of intimacy where your hearts are connecting. I love what they say here, right? He's talking about moving down from her eyes to her lips, down to her neck. And then he gets to the breasts, and he says, your breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle, which feed among the lilies. I have a picture of a fawn here. I hope it sees it. It's so cute, right? Nobody can see that fawn and not want to pet it, right? Not want to snuggle it, right? And so that's kind of what he's saying. He's like, it's just irresistible in this moment. But if you run up to that fawn and be like, hey, I want to pet you, what's going to happen? It's going to run away. That's what's going to happen. And so he's kind of talking about this situation, and he's like, they're going to run away. If you want to pet a deer, you got to approach it softly and tenderly. And that's what my wife will say to me sometimes, right? One of your wife's greatest desires, men, is that you would pursue her. My wife, I couldn't believe this week, she said those exact words, and we weren't talking about the message. She goes, I just want you to pursue me. I want to feel like you're pursuing me. She uses these words, and every woman out there feels the same way. Why? Because it's answering her question. What's her question? Am I desirable? Are you pursuing me? When you pursue me, it shows me that I am desirable. And it doesn't have to mean physical intimacy every time. It could simply mean by showing up and talking with her, spending some time, writing her a letter, a card, bringing her a little gift or some flowers, right? She wants to be pursued. And here's the issue with the man. Once we get married, our question has been answered. Did we able to get the girl? Yes, it's over, done, right? And then she's like, well, where did all the romance go? Where are all these things? You need to keep pursuing me. And that's why we need to understand our spouses, because if you don't understand this part, you're going to miss it. And you're going to start to drift apart and not realize why. You see, when you love her like that, she is going to give herself to you. She wants to feel loved. That's why it says in Ephesians this, husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for her. He gave himself up to love her. So husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. That's the way she wants to be loved. But men, we are physically attracted. It's true. One of the things is we see things physically. Women often want to hear those things instead of see them. She wants to know this, right? When we can think, ladies, that for men, it's just about the physical event, the physical action. And we would be off if we thought that way. Sometimes we think that men are more interested in the destination than the journey, and there's partially true, right? Men use romance to get sex, and women use sex to get romance. And those things are partially true. But it's more than that, because for men, sex is the confirmation of feeling loved or being loved. And what that means is when the woman offers herself to the man, it's proof that she loves him. I don't know if you realize this, right? The man's question, think about it, do I have what it takes? When she says yes, he's like, then yes, she does love me. Because sometimes the man is looking for that answer in the way the woman behaves. Physical intimacy proves that the woman actually loves him. And this is important for us to understand, ladies, because when a man is rejected when it comes to sexual intimacy, it hurts a lot. And it makes the man go, okay, maybe this is not the right situation for me. That would be wrong of the man to do that, but that's what can tend to happen. It's so important. And so sometimes my wife used to do this when we were dating and stuff, and she would say, we weren't thinking about physical intimacy. We waited till marriage for that. But we were thinking, I would try to make advances on her to go and do things. And she would say to me, I said, why is this so hard? She goes, well, I'm playing hard to get. Like, she wanted, women will play hard to get, think about this, so that the men will pursue them. But sometimes when the woman plays hard to get, the man says, no, that I'm not winning here. I'm not getting my question answered. And so we stop. So ladies, you got to be careful when you use playing hard to get. I just want that to be known. So here's a tip. Women will like tenderness, gentlemen, but men like responsiveness. Women will like tenderness from the man, but the men like responsiveness. If a woman always thinks men are just ready to go, then they're going to miss it. Because men want to know that they are succeeding in this area. One of the biggest turn-ons for a man, if I can just confess this from the stage, is when they succeed in turning on the woman. That turns on the man. Like, okay, you're being responsive to what I'm doing. That makes me want even more to be in this scenario. And this is why it's so important for us and as a family, as a couple, as a couple, to talk about sex. And it's one of the things that sometimes we're embarrassed to talk about. Why? Because it's one of those things that exposes us for all that we are. And it's so important to have those conversations with your spouse, the things that you like, the things that you don't like, the way things work or the things that you desire or what it means to you. Sometimes just like speaking, when you say these things, it means this to me. And that can be good stuff, right? Or the man, when you do these things, it means this to me. So that you both are on the same page, because the one thing you don't want to do is start missing each other when it comes to intimacy in your life. Not talking about sex will set you up for unmet expectations. You see, if you will do these things, if you will think about these two ideas in your life, what sex means to each of your partners. And if you'll talk about it, and talk about what it means for you within the context of your relationship, then you will set yourself up for your relationship to work better. Well, this, of course, is the wedding night, and things are really getting heated up, and it's going to heat up even a little bit more. So let's take a look what it says. The beloved, the husband, is speaking here. He says, a garden enclosed is my sister, my spouse. A spring shut up, a fountain sealed. So he's saying, you've waited all this time, okay? She's not like ignoring him. She's not closed off to him. What he's saying is, because if you recall last week, that the garden represents their relationship. So he's like, it was closed. We were keeping it pure. He says, it was sealed. Your plants are an orchard of pomegranates with pleasant fruits, fragrant henna with spikenard. Spikenard and saffron, calamus and cinnamon, with all trees of frankincense, myrrh and aloes, with all the chief spices, a fountain of gardens, a well of living waters, and streams from Lebanon. And now the Shulamite responds, awake, O north wind, and come, O south. Blow upon my garden, that its spices may flow out. Let my beloved come to his garden and eat its pleasant fruits. She's like, it's open season, okay? Go to I have come to my garden, my sister, he responds, my spouse. I have gathered my myrrh with my spice. I have eaten my honeycomb with my honey. I have drunk my wine with my milk. He's talking about physical intimacy. And then this voice says, do not stir up nor awaken love until it pleases. Why was that? Wait a minute, something's missing here. There's one more. It says, eat, O friends, drink, yes, drink deeply, O beloved ones. Is that there? That one's there. They're out of order. So she waited for him, is what he's saying. She waits, they held off, and now the night, she says, now it's time. Remember that other verse that we just had up there, it says, do not stir nor waken love before it pleases, came twice during the dating time. She's daydreaming about him, and she's getting all excited. And she says, wait, hold off. Don't awaken love until it pleases. Until it can be completed, we're not going to do this thing. And then she says it again in the last chapter. And yet this time she now says, awake. It's time. Let's do this. We've been married, and now is the time for us to consummate the relationship. And then there's this interesting voice. We got out of context, so it's not going to have the emphasis that I wanted it to. But there's a voice there that speaks to them. And most theologians, because it's speaking into the plural to both of them, they believe this voice actually comes from God. That God says to them, eat, O friends, drink, yes, deeply, drink deeply, O beloved ones. God is encouraging them in this, using the same euphemisms. Yes, it's time now for physical intimacy. And if you ever thought at some point that God does not like sex or that it's embarrassing, then you would be wrong. Because God is encouraging them. In fact, if you want to fill this in your outline, God made sex to be enjoyed and to be a regular part of your marriage. God made sex to be enjoyed and a regular part of your marriage. You see, God created sex. I mean, it was his idea. It wasn't man's idea, it was his. He could have made it so that it wasn't like all that awesome, right? But he makes it one of the things that people will forego eating. Like, okay, forget the meal. We're going to do this instead, right? So desirable. We'll lose sleep. We'll travel far distances for physical intimacy. You know, I can imagine God, he's creating man, right? There he is, and he's forming him, and he decides, I'm going to put all these super sensitive nerve endings right in this one place. You know, and he's like, okay, Gabriel, give me that little jar there. Okay, we'll sprinkle a couple more there. All right, yeah, you know what, I'll even put a little more because if they're arguing, I want to make sure that they still come back together again, right? That much. You know what, just give me a few more because I'd like them to call my name out in the middle of it. All right. She's dying over there. I mean, think about it for a minute. He didn't have to make it pleasurable. He didn't. And yet he decides to do that. In fact, in 1 Corinthians, if you don't think that God wants couples to engage in this activity, well, you know he does. But listen to what it says here in 1 Corinthians. It says, the husband should fulfill his wife's sexual needs, and the wife should fulfill her husband's needs. The wife gives authority over her body to her husband, and the husband gives authority over his body to his wife. Do not deprive each other of sexual relations unless you both agree to refrain from sexual intimacy for a limited time so you can give yourselves more completely to prayer. Afterward, you should come together again so that Satan would not be able to tempt you because of your lack of self-control. This is Paul writing. This is the New Testament. That was the Old Testament. Now he's like saying, God says, listen, this is important for your relationship. In fact, you need to do it regularly, and the only reason you shouldn't is for a spiritual reason, he's saying. And then don't even let that be too long. Because this is how important it is. I've created it for your relationship for a reason. You see, I believe the purpose of sex is not just for procreation. It's for a different purpose. It's designed to connect man and women in a physical and emotional level that is impossible any other way. There's no other way you'll connect that way. And we've all been there in those moments, the afterglow of sex, as we're both sitting there. You're thinking to yourselves, you're never closer to any other person on this planet than in that moment. And God is reuniting the two of you. And it has this interesting thing, a way of kind of washing away all those bad feelings that you had toward that person. Did you ever notice that? Because God created it that way. Physical intimacy is so important to unite a couple emotionally. You know, I think one of the things that happens for a lot of couples is that we get into conflict. And when we get into conflict, what happens is the nature of conflict is always one person is going to be mad at the other. Because it doesn't really matter what it is. My wife tells me, and I share this all the time, she'll say, John, you forgot to take out the trash. I don't know why that hits me at my question. You failed in this area, I think is what happens. And I automatically have bad feelings toward my wife that she had to remind me, even though it was my fault. No matter what you do when you're in conflict, it's one person pointing out the flaw of another person. That's what's going to happen. And when that happens, one person is going to now have bad feelings toward the other person. The error would be jumping into bed to not deal with the issue just so you can feel better. Because isn't there something about when we jump into bed that it makes those feelings go away? What we should do is talk it out, even though we still feel bad, and go, you know what, we're going to fix this now, the emotional part, by now being physically intimate. Do you see that God has given us this gift so that we would be one, we would be in unison together, two people in a marriage? Now going, okay, I get it. It's not going great right now. Let's talk about it, and now let's reunite those feelings so that you will be connected again with the other person. Here's the thing about sex. Sometimes you have to work at it. It's the truth. And no one here would want to admit that because we're like, yeah, no, it's always worked great with us. We have the parts, they work right. It's like, but the truth is, there are areas in our lives that we're not always perfectly compatible with our spouses. My wife doesn't think I have a great sense of humor. I don't know what's wrong with her. I'm like, we just don't have the same sense of humor. There's this place called Raspaus in Miami Lakes, and it's a Colombian restaurant, and they have all these juices there, and you could buy the juices. And one of the first times I was there, because she was introducing me to this, they have what's called maracujá. Maracujá is basically passion fruit. And they have another juice that's called guanábana. I think it's like breadfruit, right? And so they have maracujá and guanábana. And I said, they should mix the two, maracujá and guanábana, and call it marijuana. Marijuana. And so all right, some of you are laughing. She goes, that's not funny. And I looked back at her, I said, yes, it is. So listen, there are areas you're more compatible, right? Some people are outdoor people, some people are indoor people, some like to read, some people like to do physical things. Whatever it is, right? It's the same when it comes to sexuality in your life. I still remember our wedding night. Hopefully you guys remember yours too, right? Because why? Because our bed was fire that night, man. We were in a resort in Mexico. We ran away to get married. And my wife was like, John, I want you to carry me through the threshold. That's what she told me. So I'd been working out. I was better shape than I am right now, because I'm going to carry her through the threshold. Except I had to go up an elevator with her, and I held her the whole time up the elevator. We got into the hotel room, right? And her mom had, got her one of these packages where there was some champagne and some strawberries and, rose petals everywhere. So it's this beautiful, romantic resort that we're in, and we go into the room, and then on the bed there's some of those towel animals that they fold and stuff, right? And little candles everywhere. And so, obviously it was kind of like this, right? We start with the veil, everything's coming off, right? And we go to lay down, I'm laying her down on the bed, and I'm kissing her, and then suddenly I feel something hot on my leg, and I look down, I'd knocked over a candle, and the bed was on fire. You thought I was going somewhere else with this. Just to bare our souls a little bit, this hasn't been the easiest area of our lives. We've had to work at it. And like I said, you'd think, okay, because we both have parts, we both have desires, that it's going to work. And sometimes it has to be work. I mean, look at what we started with the first night. But the truth is, some of us have to work at it. And there are so many barriers to sexual intimacy in your life, right? There's communication issues. Maybe there's heavy schedules. Maybe there's constant kids. Maybe there's physical issues that prevent some of that in your life, or there's conflicts in some way, shape, or form, or even there's sin in our lives. And here's the thing. All of these things are going to work against the physical and emotional connection that God wants to create through that area of your life. And this is one thing I've found out as someone who counsels people in different formats because I'm a pastor, is when couples come into the counseling room and we talk about what the issues are, and I bring this up every time. I ask the same question. I said, when's the last time you were physically intimate? And some of them will say, well, it was a couple weeks. Some will say months, and I've had even people say years. And I'm thinking, how can this marriage be strong? How can they be feeling the connection that God designed for them if it's not happening? And it has to be for you and me. Physical intimacy has to be like a gauge on the dashboard of our marriage, right? If you look at your car, provided you have a gas car, and you look at that gauge, and it is going down, 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 what does it mean? If I don't do something, I'm going to run out of gas. This car is going to run out of gas, and we'll be broken on the side of the road. This is the same thing for physical intimacy in your marriage life. If it's going down, 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 it's telling you something. Something is wrong. Something needs to be addressed in your life. And I want to encourage you today, no matter who you are, is to fight for this area of your life. To fight for it. Because God gave it to us as a gift. And then maybe today was a little uncomfortable. I don't know if it was a little bit awkward for some people today. But it's so important. God reads a whole book and puts it in the Old Testament for you and me. And Paul's not ashamed to write about, listen, God wants you to have physical intimacy in your marriage regularly, he says this for us, because that's how important it is. You're going to have to work at it. And what happens is when we don't, the grass starts to look good on the other side of the fence. And listen, the grass isn't greener because it's on the other side of the fence. The grass is greener where you water it. And if you'll water your side of the fence, it will grow the way you want it to. I kind of want to end with this story because one of the most fascinating areas of the Bible, I think, is when you get to the end of David's life, and there's two different areas where it's in 2 Samuel, it's also in Chronicles, but he talks about David's mighty men. And he lists the things and the feats that they did where they killed giants, or they went into a pit on a snowy day and killed a lion. And all these guys who did these amazing feats, or they took on 300 guys by themselves. And there's this one guy, his name is Eleazar, son of Dodo. And he's one of his mighty men among many of them. Listen to what his story says. There's just one little section. He just says, after him was Eleazar, the son of Dodo, the Ahohite, one of the three mighty men with David when they defied the Philistines who were gathered there for battle. And the men of Israel had retreated. So they're in this field. If you read the other account, they're in a barley field. Everybody else is retreated. It's David, two guys, and Eleazar standing there. And they're fighting, and when everyone else is gone. And so he arose and attacked the Philistines, talking about Eleazar, until his hand was weary, and the hand stuck to the sword. Think about that for a minute, right? This army, they're fighting all these Philistines. They keep coming. Your guys just disappeared. And here's Eleazar hacking away, hacking away, hacking away. I can't even imagine how long that must have been. There's just four guys that are fighting all these other guys. And it's so much, he's holding onto that sword so much. I don't know if you've ever done this before. It happens to me when you hold something really tight. If you go and work out and you hold on something really tight, your hand kind of sticks in that position. Well, he's holding it all day long. He can't undo his hand anymore. He's like, I can't get this sword out of my hand because he's been fighting all this time. You know, it says that that sticking of his hand is a word called debak, and it means to cleave to. And this word is only used a few times in the Old Testament, but it's used here, and it's also used in Genesis 2:24, and Jesus quotes it to a bunch of Pharisees when he says this. It's up on the screen. This explains why a man leaves his father and mother and is joined, debak, cleaves to his wife, and the two are united in one. Since they are no longer two but one, let no one split apart what God has joined together. This is not saying that God just mystically joins a husband and wife together. There is something that happens when we say, I do. There's something that God is doing when we're physically intimate together. But it takes work and a decision on our part to make it happen, to make sure that we're protecting that area of our lives. You see, when we stick together, when we pursue hard like Eleazar, when we don't give up, when we're willing to fight for it, it will play a part in that oneness and that unity that God is seeking for you in your life. You know, I imagine if you ask Solomon and you ask the Shulamite, like, hey, how is it going in your life? They're going to tell you it's work. In fact, we're going to talk about that next week. Because it's not just a fairy tale. But it can be everything that we have wanted, just like the fairy tales tried to emulate for you and me, if we're willing to work at it, if we're willing to try hard. You see, the story of Eleazar tells us this, that if you're going to work for it and you fight with it over time, it'll become the thing that defines you and defines your marriage, the unity that we're all seeking.